I just needed to stop. I just need somebody to help me.
This Is Us kicks off a trilogy of episodes dedicated to each of the big three, and up first is number 1, Kevin. So let's break down season 2, episode 8, right here on What Happened. How's it going, everyone? Lisa here to talk all about this week's episode of This Is Us. It is the first in a trilogy of episodes dedicated to each of the big three. First up is number 1, the firstborn child and basically the first to do everything like walk, Kevin Pearson. Throughout the episode, we get to see Kevin's downward spiral in the present when it comes to his drinking, pill popping, and all that, juxtaposed with his football knee injury that changed his future plans. The episode opens with Jack and Rebecca filming the big three as they're learning to walk, and the first to take their steps is number 1, Kevin. In the present day, Kevin is still holed up in his hotel room in LA popping pills, drinking, and eating Cheetos. He's had his do not disturb sign on his door for a week, but ends up getting a knock on the door from a concerned and scene-stealing maid named Martina.
Come on in. We could use a refill on all things alcohol related.
Maybe I should change your sheets, too.
Kevin keeps ignoring calls from Kate, but eventually he answers the phone to find out it's not his sister, but this time it's a girl named Kelly from his old high school who's checking in to make sure everything's all set for Kevin's return back home for his high school's alumni honor ceremony, which just happens to be the next day. But Kevin's so, drunk and drugged out that he thought it was actually 2 weeks away. When he asks Martina if he should go, she says he should, and then she once again steals the scene.
You guys want to honor Kevin Pearson? Let's honor him.
Maybe bathe him, too.
Kevin does end up making his way back to Pittsburgh and is immediately met with fans at the airport. On his drive to the school, he asks the driver to make a detour as he stops in front of his childhood home, which we briefly see burned down for a second, and then we see him remembering his family playing football in the front yard. He stares just a little too long though, because the current owner of the house ends up coming outside. When Kevin arrives at the school, he downs the last of his pain pills before walking up, and throughout the episode we see him have flashbacks of his teenage self as well as teenage Sophie back in happier times. He then wanders the halls and looks at the trophy case with his retired jersey in it and makes his way to the green room where the other honorees are hanging out. A woman named Charlotte Everly greets him and is also being honored that night for her work as a plastic surgeon helping out kids and burn victims. She tells Kevin how she used to have a big crush on him back in the day. Actually everybody in the school came to school because of him, because they loved him. And she heard about, his and Sophie's divorce. And then Kevin, he just keeps drinking her glass of gross wine and spilling how he screwed up with Sophie again, and Kate's pregnant, and he just keeps drinking. We then see his old football coach Duffy come out to honor Kevin. The coach raves about how Kevin was a natural talent with confidence and charisma, and Kevin's been through a lot. He's had some tough breaks, but that's when he's truly showed himself to be a star, and how he's strong. And throughout the speech, Kevin keeps seeing his dad Jack giving him the speech and saying how Kevin's an example of outer and inner strength. When it comes time for Kevin to give his speech, he throws everyone for a loop when he says that the coach is actually wrong, and everyone shouldn't love him and cheer for him. If they want someone to love, they should look to people like the news reporter or Dr. Everly, who helps people. And Kevin says that he isn't worthy of any award or honor, and he walks off the stage. Now this is obviously a blatant cry for help in ways that isn't received that way, unfortunately. Instead, the whole audience ends up cheering for him, and people keep telling him his speech was great and it was inspirational, which just drives Kevin to drink even more. He also ignores another call, but this time it's not from Kate, it's from Toby. Charlotte can see that Kevin's kind of upset and asks if he wants to go for a walk, so they go to the courtyard, and he tells her how he never asked to be number 1, he was just kind of branded with that from birth. It was the position he was born with, and he feels like he could just be standing naked in front of everyone in this town or in this courtyard, and all they would ever see him in is that number 1 jersey. When Charlotte tries to comfort Kevin, he ends up walking away from her, and he goes to the football field with his bottle of wine, and he starts to kind of call out what happened that night of the big game where he got injured. So now let's take a break here and go to the flashbacks. And as far as the flashbacks go, before we get to see Kevin at this big game, we see him studying his playbook for that game, and he also has an application for Notre Dame on his desk. When a fuse blows, Jack goes to fix it, and you can see that Kevin is pretty moody. Kevin goes to the kitchen where Rebecca's making a cake because the coach from Pittsburgh is coming to meet Kevin, but it's pretty clear that he does not care about this meeting. He didn't even want it in the first place, and he has his eyes set on Notre Dame. I mean, yeah, he totally doesn't care about the meeting because he just wants to wear his sweatpants and crop top. Yeah, a crop top. Rebecca tells Kevin to go put on a collared shirt, and Kevin asks if, you know what, if this guy's coming over, can we move Jack's AA stuff from the table because it's been 6 months, and he calls Jack being in AA lame. Jack then comes in and tells Kevin to basically go get changed because this meeting is happening. Well, Kevin does go get changed and shows just how excited he is by pulling out a collared shirt from the dirty clothes hamper. Now, when the coach comes over, Kevin is pretty rude and points out how much he wants to go to Notre Dame like Joe Montana, not go to Pitt, and asks if he'll actually be starting for the team right away. Now, after the coach leaves, Kevin gets a talking to from Jack and Rebecca. Jack is pretty peeved and first tells Kevin to get out of his sight and then tells him to come back and points out how lucky he is that Kevin was offered a full ride because, you know, he's a C+ student, and Kevin just says, we can do better. Kevin also points out that he isn't lucky, it's his talent getting him all of this. Jack by now is so pissed that he tells Kevin to go write an apology letter to the coach, and when Kevin is once again a brat and points out how Jack has been doing so much apologizing to the world lately because that's part of his AA 12 steps, Jack just asks Kevin if there's something that he wants to say to him, and Kevin just says no.
It was embarrassing to watch you behave just like you did. I know the feeling well.
In the middle of the night, Jack and Kevin run into each other in the kitchen. Jack tells Kevin he's going to have to miss his game because he has to take Randall to a college visit, and he also apologizes for getting so mad and yelling at Kevin earlier. He then asks what's going on with Kevin, and Kevin just says nothing like he usually does and goes downstairs to try to write his apology letter, but ends up coming back upstairs and hears Jack on the phone with a sponsor, with Jack saying how he almost lost it that night, and then he watches Jack recite the Serenity Prayer. By the time the game comes around, Kevin still has some attitude as they see Jack and Randall off. At the game, Kevin ends up getting hit really hard and taken to the hospital for an MRI. Kevin asks Jack how long he's going to have that cast on because he thinks he's actually going to be fine and will he be ready for the playoffs. Jack ends up having to break the news to Kevin that while he'll eventually be able to run again, football is out of the question. Kevin's now in denial, saying he can totally come back from this, you know, he'll even make things right by going to Pitt, and he's sorry for being so awful to Jack. And Jack, being the good dad that he actually is, just says that he wishes that he could take all of this on for Kevin, but he can't, and he knows how much this was Kevin's dream and for how long it was Kevin's dream, but he knows Kevin has other talents there he just has to discover, and he's going to be okay. Jack then gives Kevin his necklace, which he got in Vietnam, that was his brother's necklace, even though Kevin doesn't know who Jack got it from. The necklace is the Buddhist symbol for purpose, and Jack explains to Kevin how he was feeling very lost when he got that necklace, and when he put it on, he was able to move forward, and he wore it when Kevin was born, and when that happened, he realized Kevin and the kids were his purpose. And now he's handing it off to Kevin so Kevin can find his purpose. Back in the present timeline, as Kevin is rambling off what happened during that fateful game, he also talks about how every time something bad happens, he was able to get back up and never had any consequences for whatever he did that was bad. You know, he was injured, but then he was able to walk again, but that happened just in time for him to bury his beloved father. But he got back up from that and married a great girl and went to Hollywood. But then he messed that up by cheating on Sophie, only to end up getting his own sitcom and make millions. Then he blew that, and instead of getting punished like he thinks he should be, he ended up with a second chance with Sophie and a big budget movie. And now he's down again and hooked on painkillers and trying to tell people how pathetic he is and how he needs help and is spiraling. But you know what the people do? All they do is cheer. He's cheered for whatever he does. Now, as Kevin is breaking down on this football field, the high school girl, Kelly, ends up asking him what's the party, and for a second it looks like Kevin is about to get himself into an even deeper hole by hooking up with a high schooler, but instead he ends up hooking up with Charlotte. Now, he ends up trying to search her bathroom for pills, but can't find any, so he asks her to get him some food, and she goes to the kitchen, and he goes through her purse and her desk and ends up finding her prescription pad. He takes one sheet, which is actually kind of surprising that he only took one, but he ends up taking it and ditching her and heading to the pharmacy. Now, while he's in line, he sees two cops walk in and he starts to kind of get nervous, and he goes to grab for his necklace to calm him down. But guess what? The necklace isn't there. And he rushes back to Charlotte's house and pleads with her to open the door, but instead she yells at him from the second-story window to keep it down and to go away. And he just pleads for her to let him in because he needs to get his dad's necklace, but she says it's not there, and she basically says screw you to him and slams the window. But Kevin just continues to break down on the front lawn, saying that that's the only thing he had left from his dad, and he's in pain and he just needs it to stop and for someone to help him. We then get a flashback to Kevin being wheeled down the hospital hallway and Randall and Kate being there for him. Cut back to present, and Kevin shows up at Randall's and says he needs to tell him something, and Randall says It's okay, I already know. Now for once it looks like, okay, thankfully someone has finally noticed how badly Kevin is in trouble, because I feel like in a previous episode Randall was starting to notice, and maybe even, Kate was noticing last episode, but yet no one actually asked Kevin if he was really okay, and if they did, he just said fine, he was fine, and they left it at that. But nope, that's not actually the case. There is a twist in this episode. When Randall says that he already knows, he tells Kevin that Kate lost the baby. And then the episode ends with a continuation of the footage from the very opening of this episode with baby number 2, Kate, walking for the first time. Okay, so this episode finally helped peel back some of the layers of Kevin Pearson. It feels like that since he was, firstborn, number 1, he's kind of always felt that pressure to be perfect, to make his dad proud, to be kind of strong, to, be strong and help his other siblings with their problems. And, he saw how proud Jack always was when he played football. And he had this whole dream of getting to the Super Bowl and having his dad there when he gets his trophy. And his dad saying how proud he is of him. But, that was all cut short due to his injury and Jack's death. He's also always had kind of things fall into place for him. And he's never been punished because things always just work out. And so now he's basically punishing himself, trying to call out for help in his own way. But no one is noticing because, as we know, he's not great at actually directly asking someone for help. Instead, it's like, okay, maybe if I do these things, someone will ask me if I need help, and then I can say yes. But no one ever does. And as he's finally about to ask one of the only people he can really trust for help, his brother, he gets hit with Kate's bombshell. So now it seems like he's going to, maybe put his problem back on the back burner, which is only going to make it worse because he now has to be there for Kate's problem. And also, he probably will end up feeling some kind of guilt maybe for ignoring Kate and Toby's calls and not being there for his sister, who was always there for him during her time of need. As far as why Kevin acts towards Jack the way he does, in an interview with Entertainment Weekly, Justin Hartley, explained that, Kevin always looked up to Jack as his hero and, being kind of like a god and being perfect. So when he finds out that his dad isn't perfect and is struggling with his addiction, he feels like he's kind of been lied to and he's kind of embarrassed of his father. And now he's trying to take on that role of being perfect and being number 1 for his dad to end up making his dad proud. And Kevin just kind of always feels the need to be perfect. He expects himself to be perfect, even though Jack probably wouldn't say that he would expect Kevin to be perfect. Now, I won't lie, Kevin is usually not the most likable guy on the show. He's actually mostly a cocky, kind of entitled jerk in ways, but this episode helped peel back layers of him that really kind of gave him more dimension, which I've been longing for with this character. It's just kind of crazy that no one has really noticed that he truly needs help. Like, I'm pretty sure the neighbors would have heard Kevin crying out for help on Charlotte's front lawn. She kind of probably even heard all of that still through the window, but did nothing. And it's obviously, pretty clear to us on the as we're watching the show that he's pale, he's sweating, he's shaking, he's drinking a lot. He's definitely got some kind of problems. Yet Sophie, who is a nurse, and Charlotte, who's a doctor, don't seem to pick up on anything out of the ordinary being wrong with him. And it's actually really sad. And now he's definitely just gonna keep getting worse, I feel like. And I'm hoping it doesn't get too dark and he can find a way to open up to Randall and maybe even to Kate. As far as performances go, I gotta say bravo to Justin and to Mila, who were both great in this episode, as was, teenage Kevin played by Logan. They had great performances, and it definitely made me excited to see the continuation of, this trilogy with Randall and Kate's standalone episodes. And speaking of those, let's check out the promo for Kate's episode.
When you go, then forever you will never be alone. Carry
It just happened.
Toby, it happened to me. It didn't happen to you.
Take my heart
I feel like I failed you.
when you
You never could.
Oh man, it looks like we'll definitely have to stock up on some more tissues for next week. Like, they should kind of have a This Is Us viewer discount, right? Or like a box special of like maybe 10 boxes for the price of like 2. That'd be awesome. Someone should get on top of that. Anyway, that wraps up this week's recap of This Is Us. What did you think about this Kevin-centric episode? Do you feel a little more for Kevin or no? Do you feel like he's going to ask Randall for help, or will he put his feelings on the back burner to help Kate? Also, what do you want to see happen in both Kate and Randall's episodes? Let me know, and then be sure to come back next week so we can talk all about it. Until then, feel free to hit that subscribe button if you like what you see and that thumbs up. I'm Lisa. I'll see y'all real soon.